Now tuned into the greatest.
The Run with Manny Wilson podcast.
The Run with Manny Wilson podcast.
The best sports podcast there is.
Yes, sir. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Run with me, Manny Wilson, all the way from Detroit to Chicago to your speakers and headphones. I appreciate you tuning in to the first interactive sports podcast, a community that makes sure your voice is heard. So if here's something you agree with, you disagree with, you like or you dislike, go ahead, shoot me a quick take, 219-413-9405. And of course, we'll play your take back on our next episode. And shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this episode. Get $20 off your first ticket purchase when you use the promo code The Run Podcast. Now, this code can only be applied for first-time users on the mobile app or website. So I don't know about you, but going to the Bears games this Sunday, and of course, had to go ahead, create my account and buy my ticket using SeatGeek to save myself $20. So I don't know about you, but go ahead, check that out. And speaking of the NFL, though, Week 9 in the NFL is coming up. Obviously, Thursday night here, so you're probably going to hear this during the Ravens and Bengals game, but got some stuff I'll go on, since that game's going on. I'm not really going to give a rough prediction, but some other things I do want to mention. And escaping the AFC, we're going to slide over to the NFC and just kind of bring up the most dangerous teams in the NFC right now. So we know right off rip, there's been a lot of talk. Oh, the Detroit Lions. Oh, they're 7-1. They're doing their thing. They're killing everybody. They're beating teams by 30. They're putting up 50 points. And, it's been a lot of talk and a lot of blah, blah, blah about the Lions. People are finally realizing that the Lions are the best team in the NFL of the NFC right now, and arguably in the NFL, which is completely valid. I respect it, and I got to give credit where it's due. So Lions definitely a top tier, dangerous contender in the NFC, without a doubt. I mean, this is literally their Super Bowl to go grab and play the Chiefs and beat the Chiefs. People are now depending on the Lions to stop the Kansas City Chiefs from three-peating. I mean, it's what's going on. You look at the trends on social media. People are like, please save us, Detroit Lions. And I think that's valid because, they're on another level right now, and nobody in the NFL has another offensive line that can gain yards like they do. This team is getting a push every single time they snap the ball on the offensive end. And then when you're rushing the ball, you got the animals like Gibbs and Montgomery behind that powerful offensive line who's getting a solid push every time. It's just beautiful to watch. And above all, man, it's great football that the Detroit Lions are playing right now. And one of the aspects that's kind of underrated is the defense. Obviously, we know the defense for the Lions has a lot of different injuries going on with that defensive line, but just landed Zadarius Smith, the 3-time All-Pro for the defensive line. And man, I just know he's about to cause some ruckus over there with that defensive line. The front is already crazy, even with a team full of second stringers and all of that stuff. So you got to give credit where it's due, man. This team has been going hard. You got to consider the Detroit Lions as like serious elite contenders in the NFL right now, of the NFC specifically. But one of the most impressive things I think I've seen with the Lions is the fact that although the defense has some injuries, and we know that defensive line is, picked up a new All-Pro and all of that, it's really the defensive back group. They got 2 safeties that are top 5 in interceptions. Joseph and Branch are both top 5 in interceptions. It's ridiculous to think about. Kirby Joseph is number 2, and then Branch is at number 5. So they've been locking up in terms of protecting the air and protecting that secondary. So you got to give credit to them, man. I think ultimately, if teams are going to beat the Detroit Lions, it's going to come down to if you can outscore the Lions. We're not even talking about the defense, but just the offense of being that solid and getting yards and just having that much control over the game. I don't think teams are going to be able to beat the Lions because they won't be able to outscore the Lions and score as efficiently as the Lions can so far. They make it look effortless when they're out there. So, hey, man, that's a team you want to keep an eye open for them. They're definitely looking extremely dangerous right now. And yeah, I think as anyone with eyes who can see what they've been doing on the field, it's clear they're the favorites right now in the NFC. Easily. Another team, though, that I think has a pretty good shot at getting there is the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Atlanta Falcons is also a team that could be a runner-up in the NFC. I mean, this is a dangerous offense with a subpar defense. They've been improving week after week after week in all aspects of this team, especially in that offense. Kirk Cousins has finally been able to find a groove within the offense, and they've been getting things good. Zach Robinson been calling some good plays. The play calling is looking free-flowing and all of that. So I'm loving it. And then you got to mention, too, the Atlanta Falcons offense, they're fourth in air yards in the NFL so far this season. So they're really letting that thing fly, but you can't even discredit what they're doing on the ground with Bijan Robinson now that they finally got the healthy O-line back. So you have to consider those type of things. I said the subpar defense is the part where it kind of concerns me. It is a little scary to think about because, you know, teams are still scoring efficiently against the Atlanta Falcons, whether they're good or bad or, shaky middle ground. It's like they're giving up points time after time. And I don't think they'll really be able to start smacking teams and beating teams as good as they can until the defense can hold other teams from scoring points. So that's one thing that concerns me. However, I'm confident because with an experienced quarterback like Kirk Cousins, he can help you win games in the clutch. He has playoff experience. Yes, his record isn't extremely pretty when you talk about his playoff experience, but the fact that he's been there is better than him not being there at all. And it does make a huge difference. A lot of people say he couldn't win in primetime, but look, there has been a first for that. We've seen him win multiple games in primetime this year. So him going to the playoffs, I think there could be that type of success where it's like, oh, he doesn't win in the playoffs. He's not a good playoff quarterback. And then all of a sudden he's winning games in the playoffs. So I think this is something that we could possibly see from the Atlanta Falcons. They've been playing solid, so I got to give credit to them, and that's a non-biased take. Obviously, y'all know I hope the Lions win the Falcons win a Super Bowl, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. There's a couple other teams too. I want to give credit. The Philadelphia Eagles. They've been playing fairly solid as of lately. They've been winning some games. Right now, they're 6-2, and the thing with the Eagles that I've mainly been concerned about is Jalen Hurts. So before I touch on Jalen Hurts, I just want to say the two losses that the Eagles have as a whole is to the Falcons and the Buccaneers, two elite offenses, and it just so happened the game wasn't going their way. But within Jalen Hurts, in times where I've seen him play good, you got to give him credit where it's due. I'm on the record. In the beginning of the season, I said Jalen Hurts is not a top 5 quarterback, and I still stand on that. I don't think Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL today, especially not in this NFL season that we're currently watching. However, you have to give credit where it's due because Jalen Hurts has been limiting turnovers like crazy. He hasn't thrown an interception since week 3 in the NFL. There's been 5 weeks consecutively where he has not thrown an interception. So you got to give credit that he's protecting the ball like he hasn't done in the past. He has 8 rushing touchdowns and 10 passing touchdowns. But the main thing out of all of this on the offensive side, yeah, they got the weapons, Devontae Smith, they got Saquon Barkley, which is amazing. It's just the one question that really drives me crazy about the Eagles is, can this offensive line really nail in and protect Jalen Hurts when it's necessary? Because he's been sacked a lot of different times so far in this season. 21 times to be specific. I believe that's top 10 in quarterbacks who have been sacked, but not many 6-2 quarterbacks in the NFL have been sacked this many times. Jalen Hurts, we know he's a guy with some legs. He can run, he can evade the sack, but it's only so much of that he can do if the offensive line is not giving him proper time to do that. So Eagles, they have been fairly solid. We've seen some shaky moments. Jalen Hurts, we've seen some shaky moments last week. He made some beautiful throws. Saquon Barkley had some beautiful plays with the reverse hurdle, which is just wild. I still can't even believe he did that. The reverse hurdle was nuts. But above all, we've seen the Eagles. They've been fairly solid for the most part. So you got to give them some credit about what they've been doing in their play. I think you have to consider the Philadelphia Eagles as a legitimate contender in the NFC. Not saying they'll cause some damage, but they have the experience. They've been there before. And then this is a 6-2 team who's been seemingly getting better and better as the year has been going on in the season. And the quarterback hasn't been turning the ball over, and that's the most you can ask for Jalen Hurts. So you got to consider the Philadelphia Eagles. when you're talking about true contenders in the NFC. I don't want to count them out just yet. Another team too that people are gonna like be upset about. I gotta mention them, and this is the last team too. I gotta mention them. The Washington Commanders. They're 7-2 right now, which looks great on paper. You got Jaden Daniels. He's been playing great. He's been doing this thing, throwing over 200 yards in every single game since week 1. I mean, the Commanders are leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns right now. They've been playing great. All around, week by week, it's entertaining to watch. It's fun. It's new. It's something exciting. But truth be told, let's be honest for a second. The Washington Commanders are not going to be a true force in the NFC when it comes to the playoff time. I seriously doubt, and I find it unbelievable that Jaden Daniels will end up taking this Washington Commanders team far on a deep playoff run. Will he get past the wild card if they have to play somebody? Of course. Will he possibly win a division round? Maybe, but I think that's where the trip will end for Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders at best, because the experience is just not there. And when we look at the teams, it really just depends on the matchup and who they play. The NFC is not stacked with a bunch of crazy talented teams, but they're stacked with experienced quarterback and experienced guys. So they run into a team like the Rams, it's going to be a little bit dangerous. You know Matthew Stafford gets down. Matthew Stafford can win ball games, so it might be a little rough. They run against the Seattle Seahawks. It might be a little rough. They run into the Falcons. They run into the Eagles. It could get ugly. And yes, we've seen this team roll over the past few weeks, but above all, playoffs is a different ball game, and I'm just not that confident in the Washington Commanders just yet that they'll still be able to go against teams in the playoffs, a Green Bay Packers or a Minnesota Vikings, and actually be able to beat them. Although these teams are more experienced. Experience usually has the favor in the postseason. When you look at all the other results that's been going on, typically in the Super Bowl, in every matchup down below, the team with more experience usually wins. So because of that reason, I would be very, very shocked if the Commanders did go on a deep playoff run and really make something happen. Either way, them going to the playoffs, them having a 7-2 record as of right now going into week 9, it's already huge. It's a huge win for the season, but obviously you want to push for more. So the Commanders, they're a threat, but I don't think they're going to be a true contender in the playoffs when it comes down to it. Would I want to run into the Commanders? Hell no, I don't want to play the Commanders. But above all, I think, they'll make for a great game, but I don't know if they'll be able to close that game out and actually win it. That's just it. All right, anyway, look, hang in there. We got some news for the run, and then we got a couple of things, too, about the Cowboys and some other teams that they may have to think about calling it quits. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. It's halftime.